welcome, and thank you for being patient. Am I on? Can you hear me? Yep, okay. These candles, these are the 12 candles that represent the 12 disciples who have followed Jesus through his 3 years of ministry, and they will become an integral part of our service today. This is a day when the children help us tell the story of Jesus last week as he enters Jerusalem to great acclaim and hosannas, and then is arrested, sentenced to die, and is crucified. Here at the Methodist Church, we don't have midweek services. This is our Holy Week service today, so that everyone gets to hear the whole story, because I think the whole story is incredibly important to our faith as we contemplate what it means to follow a man who chose to be crucified because he loves us so much, and he wanted to show us how much God loves us. So the children have not practiced this, so we are going to be gracious. We are going to do this slowly and contemplatively. Everything will be on the screen. The children will be asking questions, and the mic that I hoped we could use is not working. So they're just going to have to be loud, and you're just going to have to listen loudly and carefully. I wanted a few announcements. Next Sunday, if you'd like to surround the grave, this will become a grave at the end of the service. If you'd like to surround the grave with a garden of flowers, you can bring a plant or a flowering plant or a potted plant that's special to you, or cut flowers in a vase, and we will surround Jesus' tomb with flowers as we celebrate a resurrection in a garden. And then the week after Easter, on the 23rd, at 10 o'clock a.m., we are going to be showing a road trip across America, and this is part of a nationwide film festival. And I had no control about when this happened or how it happened, and I'm sorry that it's such a late notice. But people from around the country will be watching films this week, and we will be showing, and we're the only rural congregation showing a film, so I think that's pretty significant. We will be showing the film A Road Trip Across America, which talks about the political divide and the ethical and moral divide in this country, and how we can enter into conversation together. So I hope that those of you who are able to come at 10 a.m. on the 23rd. Now, if there's a number of you that want to see it and can't come at 10 a.m., I do have the rights to watch it that evening, and I would be more than willing to put it back on and to watch it in the evening. You just have to let me know that you'd like to come back and do that. I cannot show it any other time, because the filmmakers who produced these films have given them to us without cost, and so we have to abide by their parameters. All right, so let's center ourselves. Bobbie will bring us into worship. We'll center ourselves, and I'll get the kids ready. God, in our times of loneliness, doubt, and turmoil, may we be reminded to entrust ourselves to God's unfailing love. Empower us as communities of faith to witness in word and deed to God's steadfast, never-failing, liberating, and transforming love. Praise team. on the back of a donkey, and crowds of people are following him. They are going ahead of him, waving palm branches, praising him as the one God has sent. Hosanna means the one who saves. So the crowd following Jesus is saying, please save us. And so we all say, Hosanna in the highest. Blessed are those who come in the name of God. Whether we recognize you or whether we fail to recognize you, your steadfast love, O God, endures forever. And those of you who have coins, come and put coins and put them around the disciple candles, please. If your slip says come. Take a handful. Question number 2.
What is the meaning of these silver coins?
Judas, one of Jesus' 12 disciples, these 12 candles on the table represent each disciple of Jesus, and Judas, who was worried about what was going on with Jesus, asked one of the religious leaders how much money they will give him if he led them to Jesus so that they can arrest him. They promised Judas 30 silver coins. This would be a very large sum of money in Jesus' day, close to half a year's wages, or about $15,000. Judas received this money from the religious leaders, and from that day forward, he was looking for a way that he could get Jesus arrested. Now here's the thing. Jesus loved Judas. Judas was a disciple, a follower of Jesus, yet Judas was the first one of the 12 to leave Jesus' side and go his own way. So we will now extinguish one of the disciple candles to remind ourselves that Judas betrayed Jesus. Harry, would you come help me to extinguish? You're going to pick this up and put it over this one. And we say, even when we betray you and when we betray each other,
your steadfast love, O God, endures forever.
Question number 3.
What is the meaning of the bread?
Who's going to bring a bread to the table, the local bread? It's this one right here. I explained to the kids that we're putting these items on our table because when we bury the table, we will be reminded that all these things that happened during the last week of Jesus' life will be buried with him. Jesus and the disciples were sharing the Passover meal together. In Matthew, we read, while they were eating, Jesus took a piece of bread, gave a prayer of thanks, broke it, and gave it to his disciples. Take and eat it, he said. This is my body. Then he took a cup, gave thanks to God, and gave it to them. Drink it, all of you, he said. This is my love, which seals God's covenant. My love poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. And I tell you, I will never drink wine with you again until the day I drink the new wine with you in my Father's kingdom. This is the meal that we reenact every time we do communion. At this meal, Jesus tells them that one of them will betray him, and they all protest and say they will never let him down. Nonetheless, Jesus blesses the bread, breaks it, and gives it to them, saying, "Take, eat, this is my body." In order to remember this meal today, we are going to share bread as a congregation, and I'm inviting 3 of the kids to help pass out the trays of bread. So if you have trays of bread, come up while the praise team sings. I need two of you. Teresa, Brenda, I want you to go to the aisles there. Is there a third person that has a tray of bread? Oh, you did it? Oh, you had two then. So just pass it down, everybody, and
The body of Jesus, broken for you. He offered his body, he poured out his soul. Jesus was broken, that we might be whole. Broken for me, broken for you. The body of Jesus, broken for you. Come to my table and with me dine. Eat of my bread and drink of my wine. Broken for me, broken for you. The body of Jesus, broken for you. This is my body, given for you. Eat and remembering, I died for you. Broken for me, broken for you. The body of Jesus, broken for you. This is my blood, I shed for you, for your forgiveness, making you new. Broken for me, broken for you. The body of Jesus, broken for you.
question number 4.
Why do Jesus' friends all leave him alone?
Good question. All of Jesus' disciples leave his side during that last week of Jesus' life. They all abandon him. Even though Peter promises that he will never do that, the disciples are scared and confused. Soldiers are coming. Jesus will be arrested. Jesus replies to Peter that before the cock crows at dawn the next day, Peter will have denied him 3 times. Peter will have left him. And none of the disciples stay with him either. We're now going to blow out all 12 of the candles, the 11 that are left, and you all have you to come up and take a candle. And we will blow them out while the praise team sings, Jesus walked this lonesome valley. So leave your papers there, and then come on up and we'll extinguish the candles one at a time. Take And we say, when we let others down and others let us down, but your steadfast love, O God, endures forever. Then Jesus went with his disciples to a garden called Gethsemane and told his disciples, "Stay here while I go over there and pray." He actually took along Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, and he became very troubled and sad. He said, "This sorrow is crushing my life out. So please, disciples, stay here and pray with me and watch with me." Jesus fell on his face praying, "Abba," which is another word for Papa, "if there's any way, get me out of this. Please, not what I want. You, what do you want?" Then he came back to Peter and the sons of Zebedee, and he saw that they were asleep. And he said, "Can't you stick it out with me a single hour? Stay alert and be in prayer so you don't wander into temptation without even knowing you're in danger. There's a part of you that is eager, ready for anything in God. But there's another part of you," Jesus said, "that is as lazy as an old dog sleeping by a fire." It's really what it says in the Bible. Jesus said, "My time is up. The Son of God is about to be handed over to the hands of sinners. Get up. Let's get going. My betrayer is here." And we'll sing verse 1 of Go to Dark Gethsemane. But he also entrusts himself to God, saying, "Yet not what I want, but what you want." I find it fascinating that Jesus, the Son of God, was frightened, and so he prayed to God. He was alone, and he was unsure of his future. This is why he taught us to pray, because he knew we would be like that too in our lives. And he knew how much praying to God helped him. And so we'll pray together now the prayer that Jesus taught us, reminding us that this prayer Jesus knew we would need in our lives. Our loving God in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Save us from the time of trial and deliver us from evil. For the dominion, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen. And we say, even in the hardest times in our lives,
your steadfast love, O God, endures forever.
Now in the Gospel of Matthew, while Jesus is in the garden and praying, Matthew tells us about the time Jesus was arrested, and it goes like this. While Jesus was still speaking, Judas came. Remember Judas? With him was a large crowd carrying swords and clubs. They had been sent by the chief priests and elders of the people. Judas had given the soldiers a sign. Arrest the man that I kiss. Judas walked right up to Jesus and kissed him and said, "Hello, teacher." But Jesus said to Judas, "Friend, do what you came to do." Then the soldiers came and grabbed Jesus and arrested him. And Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you come with swords and clubs to arrest me like a thief? I've been with you day after day. I've been in the temple. Why didn't you arrest me then?" So question number 6.
Why do the soldiers have weapons with them?
Yeah, somebody as peaceful as Jesus, why do you think they needed weapons? They bring weapons in case Jesus resists. But they didn't need to bring weapons because Jesus will not fight. During this whole week, Jesus will never fight for his life. That is not his way. And so we proclaim, we sometimes use violence to try to get what we want. Your steadfast love,
O God, endures forever.
So now Jesus has been arrested. And those who arrested Jesus took him to the house of Caiaphas, who is the high priest, the one in charge of the religion. Teachers of the law and the elders had all gathered there. The chief priests and the whole council tried to find some false evidence against Jesus to put him to death, but they could not find any, even though many people came forward and told lies about Jesus. Let's sing together, "Go to Dark Gethsemane." To put Jesus to death. table to remind us that people tried to make Jesus say and do things that were not right. They hurt Jesus. His crown of thorns is really prickly, and it would hurt. Even if you didn't press it into your head, it would hurt on your head. And here's the thing. Jesus was the king, but not in the way others wanted him to be. Jesus was the Messiah, the one that God had promised to save us. But he didn't have to say it out loud, because he lived and taught us to follow him as King and Messiah. He showed us the way to be God's follower. Jesus knew that we just didn't need one king and one Messiah. Jesus needed followers. But his followers put a crown of thorns on his head because they didn't want to follow Jesus in the way Jesus wanted them to follow him. So whoever has the crown of thorns can put it on them.
What happens to Jesus?
That was a good practice. Be very careful. This is really important. Oh, just like the crowd, we do not always act justly. Your steadfast love, O God, endures forever. So now we go and find Peter. Remember Peter, the disciple who said, "I'll never leave you, Jesus, I love you." And he was sitting in a courtyard around some fires when one of the high priest's servant women came to him and said, "You too were with Jesus of Galilee, weren't you?" But Peter said in front of them all, "I don't know what you're talking about." He answered and went out to the entrance of the courtyard. And there another servant woman saw him and said to the men there, "He was with Jesus of Nazareth. I saw him." And again Peter denied it and said, "I swear to you, I don't know that man." And after a little while the men standing there came to Peter, "Of course you were one of them," they said. "After all, the way you speak gives you away." And then Peter said, "I swear I am telling the truth. May God punish me if I am not telling the truth. I do not know that man." Just then a rooster crowed, and Peter remembered what Jesus had told him. "Before the rooster crows, you will say 3 times that you do not know me." And when Peter heard that rooster crow and remembered Jesus' words, he went out and he wept bitterly. Let's put a rooster on our table to remind us. Question number 8.
Why does Peter lie?
Why does any of us lie? We lie because we're scared, right? We know there's going to be trouble and he doesn't want to be part of it. He sees how everyone's treating Jesus. I'm sure you've all seen that too with your friends. And he doesn't want to admit that Jesus is his friend because he's afraid he might be arrested too. He lies. So when the rooster crows in the morning, Peter realizes what Jesus had said to him, and he breaks down and cries. And yet, we can affirm, when we are afraid, we sometimes deny God. Your steadfast love, O not over for Jesus yet. This is a long week, isn't it? Early in the morning, the chief priests and the elders are still wanting to put Jesus to death. And they know that they can't do it because he hasn't broken any of their laws. So he takes them to Pilate. He is the Roman governor. Number 8, or number 9, I'm sorry.
What does Pilate do?
Okay, so Pilate, you can see kind of what he looked like. He was in charge of the criminals in the jails in Jerusalem, where Jesus was. And Pilate can see that Jesus is innocent, and he's worried. He knows that the religious leaders have turned the crowd against Jesus, and he asks them to choose who should be killed instead, a thief called Barnabas or Jesus. He hopes that they will choose Barnabas, because Barnabas actually had done something wrong. But the crowd by now wants Jesus to be killed, so they shout, "Kill Jesus." Pilate does not want to be held responsible, so he announces that he is washing his hands of what happens to Jesus. And to symbolize that, he actually takes a bowl and washes his hands, as if that would make him innocent of sending a man to his death. So we are now going to put a bowl and a towel on the table to remind us of Pilate. Somebody is a towel. Oh, how many times do we blame and judge others, and we fail to take responsibility ourselves? Nonetheless, your steadfast love, O God, endures forever. Let's hear the praise team sing again. Jesus walked this lonesome valley, and think how lonesome Jesus must have felt now. So now, the soldiers have charge of Jesus again, and they take him into the palace, and a whole company are gathered around him. And they take his clothes off, they strip him, and they put a purple robe on him. Then they put a stick in his hand, and they knelt before him and made fun of him. "Long live the King of the Jews," they said, and they spat on him. And they took a stick, and they hit him over the head. When they had finished making fun of him, they took the robe off and put his own clothes back on him. They let him out to crucify him. Number 10.
Why are people insulting Jesus?
That's a good question. Why are people insulting Jesus, somebody who loves them? Jesus said that to follow him was the way to God, but right now it looks like Jesus is weak. No one is sticking up for him. All his friends have left him. The religious leaders aren't supporting him. The crowds have turned their back on him. So, while he's looking weak, the soldiers think it's okay to make fun of him. That happens, doesn't it? When somebody remind us that people made fun of Jesus and dressed him in a purple robe, which was just another way of making fun of him. And let's sing again. Go to dark Gethsemane. Everything on this table represents something that we do to each other, to ourselves, to our neighbors, and sometimes even to God. Jesus knows what we go through. That's what this week is all about. That's what this story is all about. Others sometimes mock us, and we sometimes mock others, yet your steadfast love, O God, endures forever. So there's Jesus, a crown of thorns on his head, beaten, spit on. Number 11. What happens to Jesus next? Well, here comes the really hard part. Because in Jesus' day, they killed criminals on a cross. And so the soldiers take Jesus to kill him by nailing him to a cross. And they put a sign mocking him, saying, "This is the King of the Jews," and everyone's laughing at him. Except there are a few at the base of the cross who are crying and weeping. And most of them are women. But most people are shouting, "If you're God's son, save yourself." At 3 o'clock that afternoon, Jesus dies after crying out in prayer. Earth shakes and the rocks split apart. Jesus is dead. We extinguish now the Christ candle, which we light every Sunday to remind us that Jesus is with us, always. But for the next week, we are going to remember that Jesus has died. Because of all these things that have happened that are on this table. All his friends who left him. All the ways he showed us love. All the ways he gave us gifts. But we said, "We don't want those. We want a different kind of power." So let us sing, "Go to Dark Gethsemane."
Calvary's mournful mountain climb, there adoring at his feet, mark that miracle of time, God's own sacrifice is complete. Sin is finished, hear him cry, learn of Jesus Christ to
One last question, number 12.
Why did it take Jesus after he dies?
Well, Jesus, like most everybody else, gets buried. He has a friend named Joseph, who's a rich follower of Jesus. And when he realizes what's happened, he asks Pilate if he can take Jesus' body. clean linen cloth and puts it in a brand new tomb, which is important because back then lots of people were always buried in tombs together. Joseph rolls a huge stone in front of the tomb, and the chief priests have the tomb sealed. And for 3 days, Jesus' friends gather together in groups, weeping and grieving, because the best person they had ever known has died. And they realize what a crime that was. We are now going to bury the communion table where we put all these symbols in the last week of Jesus' life. We will bury all of this hatred that led to Jesus' death, all of the mocking, all of the scorn, all of the betrayal, all of the pain, and all of the ugliness, and all of the sin. So, kids, I want you to stand up and we're going to put the cloth over the table while people sing, "Were You There?" When it seems as though life has ended, your steadfast love, O God, endures forever. Children, I'll take you out in the congregation and we'll lead in silence today, remembering what a terrible week that was for Jesus. On Sunday,